Thank you, Angelo Gavrielatos, for joining us today, the President of the New South Wales Teachers Federation.
Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Well, what a challenging few months that we've had. A lot of our frontline essential workers have really been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And over the last few weeks, the Greek Herald has been celebrating these workers within the Greek Australian community. And today we wanted to speak to you about teachers in general who have been working really hard to ensure that the school remains a safe environment for students, and also dealing with the anxieties that these students are facing now because of their changed reality. Now, I wanted to first ask you, how would you describe the teaching conditions that have confronted your members?
Our teachers are actually preparing 3 different kinds of lesson delivery for our students to ensure some level of education continuity. In addition to doing face-to-face teaching from time to time, in addition to creating online material and uploading that material, in addition to photocopying reams and reams of paper work, stuffing it into envelope and dispatching it, remembering that many children do not have access to the technologies that are often referred to during this pandemic when it comes to learning. Online learning is a dream for many of our children. They don't have computers at home, devices at home, so that meant an incredible workload for teachers and principals.
Of course, and now you have the added bonus of the New South Wales government announcing that from May 11, students will start phasing their return to school. We're going to have about 25% of students 1 day a week from May 11, 2 days a week, etc. What are your thoughts on that plan?
We said to the government more than 3 weeks ago, we said, if and when it is safe, if and when the restrictions on gatherings and movement are eased, we acknowledge that at that time, there would need to be consideration as to how we start to transition our school operations. We said to the government that that transition needs to be orderly and staggered, to be managed. We put forward a proposition to the government that could take the form of bringing Year 12 back first, the HSC students first in high schools, and kindergarten first in primary schools. Then, when the circumstances allow, you'd add Year 7 and Year 6 and slowly, progressively pad out the school so that it resembles something that is normal. The government rejected our proposal and announced a return to school program, which we believe presents serious organisational challenges to schools. The plan announced by the Premier will in fact be unworkable in most schools, but it has another consequences. And that consequence is the negative impact it will have on Year 12 students, our HSC students. The HSC is a very stressful period for all students, and indeed the parents of those students who are also vicariously doing the HSC through their children again. Under this plan announced by the Premier, what we've seen is a dramatic escalation of inequities that already pre-existed the virus. There are serious inequities in our society. But under this plan, what we will now see is profound inequities.
Yeah, and I'll come back to the HSC later, but on the issue of inequities, there have been suggestions that COVID-19 will amplify existing inequalities in our education system. Do you think that's true?
We've been raising these matters for decades. However, during this crisis, those inequities have been exposed for everyone to see. So, for example, let's talk about technology and the often reference, as I've already spoken about this reference to learning, distance learning, online learning, whatever it's called. That assumes that all children have access to the technologies required for that to be implemented effectively. all the images we see on television that report on this question show families with computers, laptops, iPads, all sorts of devices. But that's not the story. That's not the reality for a large number of students, a very large number of students. So this crisis has certainly put the spotlight and exposed inequities that we've known existed for a long time, serious inequities. Yet we have governments who pay lip service to those inequities, newly discovered inequities, yet continue to exacerbate them through their policy settings.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And now just on that, going back to the HSC, the exam period in general is an extraordinarily stressful time, and even more so now for students. But students have been told that the exams are going ahead as normal. What are your thoughts on this, and what advice would you give to families who are helping their students through this time?
Well, the advice to all students is continue to do your very best. Students are continuing to get advice and material from their teachers. I've yet to meet a teacher that isn't trying to do their very best for every single student. The advice for the parents of students doing HSC is please stay calm. Let's look after each other and everyone's mental health during this crisis, as well as our health more broadly.
Yeah. And then it's interesting as well in that I don't know if you've seen the recent report that came out that said that half of Australian children and young people stand to be adversely affected by the nation's remote learning. Quite a few people would say that's quite unfair because many parents have worked so hard during this strange time to ensure that not only are they working full-time at home, but they're teaching their students and their children.
We need to acknowledge the incredible effort by parents who are trying under these difficult circumstances to also do the very best for their children. Teachers who are also parents, and all parents, are trying to juggle a lot of competing demands, their work, their kids, and the stress associated with it. This is a crisis. It's not normal. And this is not the ideal form of teaching and learning. We all know that. What we all hope for is for us to get through this crisis as soon as possible, because I know that as far as every teacher and principal is concerned, they would prefer nothing more than being able to go back to their classrooms and teach their kids.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to ask next, is that do you think this is going to change the way our kids are being educated in the future?
I hear a lot of people talk about that, and some people get all sorts very excited about these things. Yeah. What I'm more interested about right now is making sure that we look after everyone to get through this crisis. Yes, there's a lot of things that we're learning, a lot of things that we had never anticipated, a lot of remarkable things happening, but we'll reflect on that. But right now, it's about making sure we look after the health and safety of everyone.
Exactly. And for teachers, our essential workers, many feel, there's been a few comments actually that they feel underappreciated and undervalued in society. Do you think the way they've handled this situation during the COVID-19 pandemic will change that feeling, like the society's opinion of them?
Well, let's hope so. There's been a lot of comments where people are appreciating the role of teachers in a way that they haven't appreciated it before. A lot of parents who aren't teachers, who are at home with their children, I think have found a new appreciation for the work of teachers. I hope that this newfound appreciation lasts long after the pandemic and the crisis is over.
Thank you for your time today, Angelo.
Thank you.